Hello everyone. For those of you who haven't seen me before, I make these videos so I can do my best in explaining my conservative viewpoints, and that having such viewpoints does not make you racist, sexist, closed-minded, or an overall terrible person. Even during a time when we should all be pulling together, I'm still seeing people attacking others simply for their socio-political viewpoints. People get so easily triggered by this that they've actually formed enemies based solely on these viewpoints. Now, I feel, as I hope you do, that it's a despicable practice to see value in another person only if his or her socio-political leanings match yours. And if you don't know what the viewpoints of this other person are, you can still be friends as long as you can assume that you're both in agreement on what you consider to be the major social issues. But why do we act this way? Human beings are very complex with their thoughts, feelings, and emotions, so much so that we often can't even make sense of our own. So why is it considered fair game to judge an entire person, the whole complex makeup of a human being, based solely on a few opinions? As I've said in a previous video, people naturally like being around those who have similar beliefs and experiences. In fact, it's how we start making friends going all the way back to our childhoods. It's possible that this could also be where the resentment of other beliefs comes from. As children, we have a very simplistic view of the world. Things are either one way or the other, with not much gray area in the middle. Most of the media targeted at children have very simple stories, with the good guys and the bad guys clearly defined, without much complexity to them. If we were raised on material like that, it would be easy to start seeing the world in a similar way, whether you intended to or not. Think about your own school days. Chances are, there were people you wanted to hang around with, and people you'd never want to hang around with. If you carry this kind of negative feeling toward others, it could easily escalate into feelings of resentment, not just toward those people in particular, but anyone who's anything like them. Now, given how kiddish that probably sounds, you might think these feelings are things that you outgrow. For some people, maybe, but does this happen in general? Think about your high school and college days. Remember all those social cliques that were extremely exclusive, and anyone who even tried to join who wasn't just like everyone else in the group was mocked and ridiculed for it? Again, this could be a direct result of clinging too hard to your own thoughts and principles and looking down on those who disagree. They live by the misguided notion that people are only defined by their viewpoints and principles and not by anything else. They could meet someone who's the nicest person in the world and never has an unkind thing to say about anyone, but if this person doesn't share the underlying principles of the clique, this person is practically nothing to them. That's where the shame really is. As we enter adulthood, we become more aware of socio-political issues and form our own opinions regarding them. But sadly, the urge to form social cliques has not left all of us. Now it's only the people who lean the same way politically as we do who are the worthwhile people, and anyone leaning the other way are the enemies. It may not be the only thing that counts in people's eyes, but having an opposing viewpoint is certainly difficult to overcome if you want to remain in good standing. Now, you might have noticed in these videos that even though I talk about people with conservative viewpoints, I've never mentioned anyone by name. You might think that I've been referring to specific people this whole time, but all I've been doing is defending the ideology, not vouching for any specific people. I can't defend or criticize people I've never met, so to me there's no point in bringing up names. However, in this video, I'm going to break away from that and actually bring up a couple of names, since there's something I've wanted to address for a while. Now, the name I want to bring up here is, stay with me now, Ellen DeGeneres. Now, before you start jumping to conclusions, let me make it perfectly clear that I have absolutely nothing against Ellen DeGeneres. I'm not attacking her. I have no reason whatsoever to dislike her. Her fan base, on the other hand, has always kind of irritated me. For years now, I've been spoon-fed tons of articles, comments, memes, and YouTube recommendations that portray her as the greatest human being who ever existed. Now, I've never doubted that she was a good person, but to see this level of overwhelming praise heaped upon her, I'm going to be honest, it always struck me as somewhat phony. I just had the sneaking suspicion that people were overpraising Ellen, not because they felt that she herself deserved it, but because they wanted her to be a testament to how people of her sexuality and political leaning deserved to be considered superior to the other side. In other words, it's like having a celebrity within your clique. Now, I know that probably makes me sound like a crazy person, which is why I never shared this suspicion with anyone. After all, it was entirely possible that I was dead wrong, and Ellen really is this amazing person that deserves this kind of recognition. But then, and you probably know where I'm going with this, came that infamous football game where Ellen was spotted sitting next to and chatting it up with former President George W. Bush, who's pretty much the enemy of liberal ideology. As you'd expect, this sent the internet in an uproar. The backlash became so prominent that Ellen had to address it on her show. She explained that not only was she friends with Bush, but that people with opposite political viewpoints should be able to get along just fine. Now, needless to say, I certainly respect her a lot more for saying that, but her fan base, not so much. Ever since this moment, all the comments and memes singing her praises and the YouTube recommendations that show her doing great things for her guests and audience members stopped. I never saw anything else in the media that showed her humanitarian actions. In fact, the things I hear about Ellen now are about her being snooty and mistreating her coworkers, acting like a big shot, or even worse. It's funny how that football game seemed to be the moment when the general consensus changed. A bit too much of a coincidence, if you ask me. Maybe my suspicions weren't so crazy after all. Imagine back in your school days, if a person from a clique started hanging around with someone that the other members object to. What would have happened? Well, chances are, the other clique members would start acting betrayed and look down on their former friend, possibly by verbally attacking them or spreading malicious rumors about them. Kind of like what's happening to Ellen now. It really makes you think. Now, it's one thing to be serious about specific political issues, but if you're going to define a person's worth based solely on his or her take on that issue, it's a very shallow way of thinking. You're going to deprive yourself of the chance to meet some very nice people. But if you want to put yourself above them because you believe your political leanings are superior to theirs, just remember this. It is lonely at the top. Think about that. Thanks for watching.